astronauts. Welcome to the Digital Galaxy Podcast. I'm your pilot, Justin.
And I'm your co pilot, Paul. Buckle up because today in episode 25, we're discussing big tech banning President Trump from their social media platforms. The information in this episode comes from the New York Times, Business Insider, and the BBC. So, Justin, first of all, I hope you're doing well.
Doing
It's
great.
been quite, yeah, good. It's been quite a tumultuous week, to say the least. Last week, of course, we covered Section 230 of the CDA. But this week, where it's kind of relevant, we're talking about Twitter, Facebook, and the other platforms banning President Trump. Can you catch the crew up on what's been going on?
Absolutely. It's pretty insane. As you may all know, on Wednesday, January 6th, President Trump gave a rally speech at the White House. Thousands of his supporters then marched to the Capitol building where the Senate and House of Representatives were holding sessions. The session was to validate and approve the electoral votes for President elect Joe Biden. During those sessions, rioters and protesters broke into the Capitol building in attempts to stop Vice President Pence's duty of certifying the Electoral College votes that would make Joe Biden president.
Uh, During the entire thing, President Trump uses platforms, most particularly Twitter, to address the crowds and release videos during the entire insurrection, if you will. His Twitter account was then suspended on the 6th and then completely banned after all the events unfolded during the Capitol building raid.
According to the BBC, Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, had this to say about the president's personal Twitter account. Quote, "We made a decision with the best information we had based on threats to physical safety both on and off Twitter." End quote.
So, Justin, what kind of precedent does this send to its users of Twitter and Facebook?
I mean, it shows a lot of things. It shows that things could have been long ago to quell some of this anger and violent language that has been happening on the platform. Jack Dorsey even said that he didn't want to ban the president, but things were getting too violent. Here's another quote from Jack Dorsey's Twitter account. Quote, "I do not celebrate or feel pride in having our platform ban the real Donald Trump." That's his at. For Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
from Twitter, or how we got here. After a clear warning, we take this action. We made a decision with the best information we had based on threats to physical safety both on and off Twitter. Was this correct? End quote.
Yeah, I like how he added that little question at the end because he's not even sure
Yeah.
if that was the correct thing to do. Uh, but obviously, a lot of people disagree with the ban, not only Trump supporters. According to the BBC, quote, the German chancellor's spokesperson said that she found the social media ban problematic, and the Mexican president said, I don't like anybody being censored, end quote.
It can definitely set a very dangerous precedent, but these are unprecedented times. This has literally never happened
Mm-hmm.
in the history of the United States. President Trump is the first president to ever be impeached twice. Social media has never existed like this in the past, so it's definitely a crazy time for everybody.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But protecting free speech is the backbone of this nation.
Absolutely.
But I also think, right, and I also think though that you should be responsible for that speech you do make. Your free speech is protected. However, your may not be protected against the consequences of that free speech, if you will. It does definitely go both ways. I know Facebook, Twitter, and everyone else who censor the president will, face some sort of backlash or even some legal action down the road. And this raises a big question for everyone: who should be making the rules for online activity?
I mean, should it be the companies? That's how it's worked so far. Should it be the government?
Right.
People already think the government is too involved in certain aspects of our lives. Facebook and Twitter are so
Mm-hmm.
influential in our lives, especially during a pandemic. We live our lives online practically.
Yeah, a lot of people, absolutely. I do believe that these companies should definitely take responsibility for their actions, for banning, for allowing such things to happen on their platforms. I know it was probably a very hard decision to make, as we kind of mentioned earlier. But it was even reported by Business Insider that Jack Dorsey was actually on vacation, not even in the country when this attempted siege of the Capitol building was happening. So who knows, if he was prepared, how he was prepared to make any such large decisions like that. And I don't think anyone ever imagined, something like that happening in their country.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think we'll have to see what happens. So much has happened in literally
Mhm.
the first month of the year. Not even, we're not even halfway through it.
I know.
We just want everybody to stay safe out there and please take care of your loved ones and yourself.
Absolutely. Um, but in summary, big tech companies like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube have banned President Trump from their platforms after the actions of his supporters on January 6th. This ignites several questions about censorship, freedom of speech, and who should be making the rules of online activity. Many don't agree with the censorship, but others agree that speech may have its consequences.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Please don't forget to follow our channels on Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. You can also find this episode in written form on our website, digitalgalaxypodcast.com. This episode was created by Clearo, a social media app where you are in charge of your data and community. Check it out at Clearo.app. I'm sorry. Thanks for coming along on our journey. Until next time.